Do you have a homestead on your home? Because some people don't, and that could be very problematic when it comes to protecting your assets. Walk through a couple of examples. Recently, I've had a conversation with some people who have their home in an LLC. Well, the LLC generally is protected from creditors, but you don't get the homestead exemption for tax purposes. And therefore, your taxes can go up much higher in that LLC than they could if it was actually your homestead. And you can't put a homestead exemption for tax purposes on an LLC. It's got to be a person or a qualifying trust for the most part. Another example that I see is someone who owns the home with their son or their daughter or their brother or parent or something. Well, if you're living in it and you only have partial ownership, you only have partial homestead exemption. Some people even have their parents entirely own the home. Maybe they gifted it, they're just letting them live there, and the child's making the payments, but it's actually in parents' name, or they were on the note for the mortgage because they couldn't get the mortgage on their own. But something like that, and now they're living there, but they can't get the homestead exemption on it because they don't own it, or they only own a portion of it. And again, you've got a couple problems that could affect your assets and your asset protection and how much you pay. Okay, so homestead exemption in Texas is phenomenal for a couple of reasons. Namely, one, you've got asset protection from creditors on your homestead. So if your home's worth $1 million and your debt is $300,000, you've got $700,000 of your equity that's locked away, tucked away, and protected from creditors if you have the homestead exemption on it. If you don't have the homestead exemption on it, you don't have that protection. So if you get sued from a lawsuit, you get in a car wreck, you're driving a car, you fall asleep at the wheel, you have a stroke, you have a seizure, something completely out of your control, and you get in a wreck and you get sued for $3 million and they're going after your home. If you have a homestead exemption on there, you're good. If you don't have the homestead exemption on there, wow, they could take that asset from you. And like we talked about with the taxes, if you don't have the homestead exemption on there for tax purposes, they can keep jacking your taxes up, which we've seen. We've had tons of people I've talked to lately whose appraised value of their rental home or their home, but not their homestead because they don't have the homestead exemption on it, went up 20, 30, 40, 45% in 1 year. And because they don't have that homestead lock on there that prevents it from going up more than 10% year over year, they're screwed. So you need to make sure that you have the right homestead exemption. Contact our firm. We'd love to talk to you about protecting your assets, making sure your home is properly titled with the deed and everything. Mike Massey Law, mytxwills.com.